You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian,
and Keith Cheatham. We're back, guys, for another fantastic week here on the Red Moon Podcast. It's feeling a little bit cooler in here, don't you say?
It's
Not terrible today.
It's not terrible. Thank you to Sean's.
It's not like hell.
It's not like Hell's Kitchen.
No.
Nothing
Oh,
was
man.
as bad as some of the days recording have been.
Yes.
Nothing has ever been comparable to Hell's Kitchen when we shot 26
No.
years. So,
A movie that we filmed long ago
was-
back in
yeah.
high school.
Mhm.
Whew, you could feel the temperature change walking up those steps.
Well, let me ask: did
It
that
was
add
awful.
to the
Actually,
film?
I think it did. Honestly,
I think it did. I
Did
mean,
it
we'd
make
have to
everybody
ask.
kind of aggregated or aggravated. There we go.
Aggravated, yeah.
Yeah,
We
that word,
aggregated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say that we'd have to ask Nathan.
Yeah.
He was our star performer in that film, and
Yes.
unfortunately, we can't get it up on
Shout out
YouTube
to Nathan there.
because I used the entire Lady in the Water soundtrack
Oh.
for the movie.
and they won't. You can
Yeah.
put it on YouTube. It just has no sound.
No, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. No. The video is completely blocked.
Oh, it won't even show the video.
Yeah, no, it won't show the video at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's completely
It
blocked.
said this is pirated. Get
Yes.
it out of here.
It did.
You stole this.
You need to remaster that with a.
A
do.
Bluray version.
You should
Yeah,
go in
yeah.
and re-edit 26 years.
And try to put like have my brother do some
Do like a-
piano music.
Oh, there you
over it.
go.
That could be interesting.
I don't know.
Cool. Yeah.
I'd have to
Yeah.
rescore the. I'd have to not only rescore the movie. I'd
Yeah.
have to
No,
re-edit.
just let him
Yeah.
play the Lady in the Water soundtrack on the piano. They can't do anything about that.
No,
'cause
true.
It's not
it would
an
be.
exact copy
That's
of the
true.
music.
That
And they
might-
wouldn't be
that
able to
might
pick it
work.
up. But the problem is I'd have it overlaid on top of the
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah.
I'd have to re-edit that. I have
Everything.
all the original footage.
See, there
Yeah.
you go.
But you're talking about hours and
Yeah,
one
just-
day.
Just do it.
Hashtag one day.
One day, guys.
I mean,
Yeah.
Someday it'll be worth it.
we have a lot of projects that need to happen before that.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, we still have an
Yeah.
audio drama that's
First
been
thing we
got
got to do is come up with a good podcast. I don't know.
Well, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are you talking about that audio drama?
Yeah. You mentioned Nathan. He actually asked me today. He's like, "So when's the next one of that coming?" I was just like, "Hashtag one day."
Soon, soon, Nathan. I promise you. Hashtag one day. We've got a website still needing to come.
I know. That was
I
like.
can firmly say
Oh.
before the end of the year, which has been said
You
before.
said that last year.
I know.
I think he said that 2 years ago.
Firmly,
so-
I did. So
Firmly.
we'll see. We'll see what happens, but it would be funny to have a terrible like standard def movie completely re-edited with like a beautiful Hollywood score
That would be great.
behind it, like completely made up for that movie. I would love to do that for 26 years when I
Well,
get to
you
be
know,
famous.
Once upon a time.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that, Sean. Was that a nice?
That
well,
was, that was supposed to be a lead in, but then you
but then
just effed it up.
I was hoping Keith would take
What am I taking?
it. See, he doesn't even
Everything
know.
that we have. To
I was.
give.
I understood
did?
his lead in, but then now we've gone past it.
We
so-
have, so we
Like,
can't.
You just blew it.
Yeah,
Like,
we can't go back.
Okay, well, let's redo that.
Well, but here's the thing. I want to tease everything else coming up on the
Okay,
show
well,
first.
go ahead, tease it.
I want to talk
Jeez.
about what our
He
show is
likes
going to
to
be about.
tease.
We obviously have a fantastic show planned, like we do every
we have
week.
a great review for
great
great
review.
movie. I mean, it's coming. We'll get into
Tarantino's
that.
ninth
His
film.
ninth, maybe his penultimate film, if he actually sticks to his word. I don't think he will.
I
but
mean, he
we'll see.
number one at the box office. Or no, number two. Sorry, but his
Yeah.
number one film ever at the box
Yeah.
Still
office.
it's
his
his
biggest
highest.
release.
Yeah, it's his highest gross. Like not highest
Highest
grossing, but the biggest
We'll see.
opening weekend. Yeah,
Right.
for any of his movies.
But then we also have our headline segment, which we're going to cover: should sequels be further apart? We talked about a little bit with Avatar. We've waited so long for it.
Well, that's just
Zombieland Double Tap's
abnormally-
coming
no,
out
that's
soon.
interesting. Yeah.
The first one there was a fantastic movie.
But those are
So
two different circumstances. So, but yeah, we're gonna get
True.
into that. It's
But we'll get
very
into
interesting.
that. Our relationship segment is coming up later in the show.
Relationships.
And we're going to be talking about, can you have more than one best friend?
One more than one bestie.
I mean, I love how the camera just pans
Can
to
ya?
you two. It's like, can you?
See, I can't see that, so I don't know.
Oh, well, we'll see.
Huh.
But, until then, yes, I guess we could go ahead and dive into our film review for this week, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
1960s Hollywood was a much different beast than today's Hollywood. Westerns were prevalent, but facing their inevitable decline. The movie star was an idol, and hippies were on the scene. Ideologies clashed, and people's values were changing. All of this is on display in Quentin Tarantino's latest film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Starring Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood tells the story of Richard Dalton, played by DiCaprio, a fading actor who once starred in the most popular Western television show of its time, and his stunt double Cliff Booth, portrayed by Pitt. The year is 1969, and throughout the film, Cliff and Dalton's lives cross paths with multiple events and people from the Manson family, mainly those events revolving around the murder of Sharon Tate, played by Margot Robbie in this film. While showcasing Dalton deal with his career fading and Cliff's inability to gain employment due to a horrific reputation, the film creates a morbid Forrest Gump feel of two men trying to live their lives and deal with their own demons as dark historic events unfold around them. The movie is unique for Tarantino as it may be one of his mildest. Foul language and violence are still present as of any Tarantino movie, but there's definitely less. But this does not detract from the Tarantino style. The dialogue is still sharp, witty, and hilarious, and the story is definitely played out in Tarantino style. Don't go in expecting the constant revenge conflicts prevalent throughout many of his more recent films. This movie definitely plays more in the style of his early movies such as Pulp Fiction, which is a format I really enjoyed seeing him return to. This doesn't mean these things are completely absent from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, only that the movie has more of a slow burn that makes the story and character arcs all the more worth it when we reach the climax at the end. Despite the slower pace, the film will still have you on the edge of your seat. The story is that good and that much fun. Dalton and Booth's interaction with each other and the people around them are mesmerizing, as the script is definitely peak Tarantino. And while Tate is a much lesser character in the film, Robbie and Tarantino give her a very human yet mysterious element that plays into the buildup of the climax, which showcases the events of the night of Tate's murder. In fact, the acting all around is impeccable. DiCaprio gives what I felt is a truly Oscar-worthy performance as his character Dalton and as the characters he portrays as an actor within the film itself. Pitt likewise gives a great performance, one that competes even with his character of Aldo Raine from Inglourious Basterds. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is unique from the films Tarantino has given us previously, yet still very much has his DNA throughout, offering a very Tarantino-esque tale of the Manson events. It's fun, clever, and leaves you with plenty to think about. I give Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 3.5 out of 4 stars. There we go, 3.5 out of 4, and it was very hard. Like, I was very much on the fence
Teetering,
of 3.5,
yeah.
4 stars.
4 stars?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it just
So you
barely
were-
barely missed the 4 stars for me.
What did it for you?
Well, because I had to I think the movie I think of as my favorite is probably Pulp Fiction. I love Pulp Fiction,
Yeah.
but what I consider to be like Tarantino's best movie is Inglourious Basterds.
I
Just
agree.
The story, the pacing, the way that movie's made out, and to me
Yeah.
that is a solid 4-star movie.
Yes.
And I didn't feel like this would quite hit that, though it was close. And I don't know. I like this one and Inglourious Basterds. It's very hard for me. It's like Pulp Fiction,
Almost equal.
Inglourious
Yeah.
Basterds, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are right there. For me, those are the top 3 Tarantino movies.
yes.
This is
I
definitely.
would completely agree.
Yeah, this is definitely up there. I mean, I love this movie.
Well, you've been kind of shady about telling us
my-
your star rating,
my-
so I want to hear that right out of the gate.
Okay, all right. I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 4.
Okay.
there you
I
go.
actually, it was Sean's advice, and it was funny because I didn't even really think about. I just walked out of the theater and I was like, "Yeah, that's a good movie." I was
Yeah.
like, I liked it.
Yeah.
But it was weird after about 24 hours, just letting it simmer, letting it sink in. It really hit me.
Yeah.
I was just sitting here and I kept thinking about scene after scene,
Yeah.
and just how the build up, but also the character development.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's got the classic Tarantino just style of not only writing, but the slow, methodical way in which he builds
That
the
slow
story.
burn is what
Yes.
I love.
And that's, even from the moment, and I would love to watch it again because even the scene at the beginning with Al Pacino when he's
Yes.
sitting in the bar,
Yes.
and actually it was really funny because most of the time you would think, let's not start off with something that slow early on in terms of building the plot, but
It works.
It
I mean,
works
yes.
beautifully, and actually
Yeah.
it's what made you kind of prepare yourself for the rest of the slower scenes later on, but yet they each build in
They're-
terms of
those
like.
two, like to
There's
me,
one in particular which I love.
Leonardo
I'll mention,
DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, their characters to me is just the whole movie. Like that is,
Yes.
I mean, obviously it
Yeah.
focuses around them and they are the main characters. But I mean, I could just watch their characters all day.
Yes.
like they were
Yes.
that compelling,
And,
their
wasn't
acting
just-
was that.
Yeah,
good.
it wasn't just when they were together though. Their separate,
Yes.
stories were so good. And,
Yeah.
and the actors played those characters like I told Keith, I was like, DiCaprio got the Oscar for The Revenant, but it should have been for this movie.
Yes.
and I hope that
And
there's
I was
one,
going to say, time will tell because we
yeah.
still don't know yet.
Yeah,
but
I hope that he. Well, see, that's the thing though, is I'm kind of like, you can't give a best actor to both guys,
Yeah.
and I felt like Brad Pitt was equally astonishing as
Honestly,
Leo.
I felt he was almost as far because I know what they would do is they would give one of them best actor and one of them best supporting actor.
Yeah,
I
Even-
think no.
even though
I,
they're
honestly,
both-
I
they're
think
both-
in this category, you could almost
Yes,
argue for
they
both
should.
of them to be best actors.
They should
Yes.
both
in the
be
running
best
for both.
because
Yeah.
their screen time and their importance in the film are equal.
Yeah.
and
Which,
honestly,
and I wonder, would that even be kind of something new for the industry in terms of Hollywood? Like that would be groundbreaking if they had two lead actors nominated
I
from
think
the same
they've
movie.
had two people from the same movie
But
in
two
supporting
lead actors?
but I don't think they've ever had.
I don't think they've
best,
had
so-
two because usually they pick one person.
But
to
I
be
feel
your
like
lead.
they both deserve it. Honestly, I mean. And between the two, Brad Pitt was my favorite.
Yes.
But I mean, they were
Really?
both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Between the two, I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio. There is a specific scene with him where he's playing Caleb that I thought was like some of the best acting
There's a
in the
couple
entire
with him.
movie.
Oh, yeah.
and I loved
the
him.
trailer.
But
scene
I
is
mean,
my
but
favorite.
between the two
Yes.
characters, I just everything Brad Pitt did, I was just
Can
like,
we'll just go
yes.
ahead and say though that our discussion about this movie is probably going to have some spoilers.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
just go ahead and get it out of the
It's
way.
hard to
We
really.
didn't want to mention
yeah.
it in the review specifically, and there is a twist.
Yeah, the
that
review.
we'll talk about.
The review is
Yeah.
completely spoiler free.
Right.
But yeah,
but we will probably explore those.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
it's hard to dissect the film without mentioning spoilers.
So for me, the 3.5 stars, in removing a half star from 4, that to me was only I couldn't find any gripes with the film.
Mhm.
Really, the only thing was that it copied some of his previous
Yes.
work, like Inglourious
Yes.
Bastards, with the alternate take on history.
yes,
And I
yeah.
thought you did that so good with Inglourious Bastards, and you do it good here
Yeah.
too, but don't do too much of the same thing.
Yes.
I liked it. I really
Yeah,
did, because it's
absolutely.
just like, wow, what if this would have just never happened
Yes.
and these people went on with their lives and we didn't have historical events like the Manson murders
such a
and
historical
stuff like that.
tragedy.
And
I
I'm just
mean,
like,
yeah.
that's an
And
awesome
that's kind of
take.
the beauty
if
of
Cliff Booth had
yeah.
been real, he could have prevented
Yes,
it.
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I will say because that was the one thing that I know it wasn't your intention, but like we were texting back
Yeah,
and forth,
yeah.
and before I had seen the
I regretted
movie,
it after I texted
Yeah.
it because
Keith
it did,
said something
yeah.
about a twist, and immediately
yeah.
Inglourious Bastards was my first
Popped
thought.
into your head.
Yeah.
And as soon as I thought about that, I was like, oh, now I've got
Yeah.
an idea.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I kind of assumed that going in
Mhm.
because my first thought was I just couldn't see as beloved as Sharon Tate was when
Was
she was alive.
that and
I-
knowing
I
how
would-
graphic
and
Tarantino
exactly.
can be,
I was like, I
he
don't
wouldn't go
see
there,
him
yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
So that was my first thought. As I was like, I was almost expecting it, but then when you confirmed it, I mean, you still don't know exactly until you see the film what
How
the
it's
twist
going to play
is
out,
and how
yeah.
it's going to play
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
But I agree with you, Sean. I think that you almost anticipate it because it's Tarantino, because you've seen him do it before.
Yep.
That you kind of see similar trends building up. I also thought too, and this is where I guess this is a little bit more nitpicky, but because I'm always so used to in Tarantino films that huge build up. For instance, for me, the biggest, I guess, comparison I could think of was Django. With Django Unchained, you have such that same kind of slow burn building up to this huge climactic ending.
Right.
Yes.
But to me, the climactic ending and how choreographed everything was with the big set piece at the end of Django, it made that slow burn that
Worth it.
much better and
Yeah,
worth
worth
it.
the wait.
And
yeah.
I felt like in this, I just wanted to see a tad bit more.
Yeah.
You wanted to
At
see
the
Brad
end.
Pitt fight the entire compound.
Yes,
that fire
yeah,
ring.
yes,
He
yes,
just go in and fight
exactly.
all the hippies, not just
And I
three
really
of them.
did. I thought
Damn
I,
hippies.
which I love.
I love the ranch scene.
That
is
is
great.
my favorite scene.
That
in
was
the
my
movie.
favorite scene in the
Freaking
movie as
Bruce
well.
Dern
Oh,
was
yes.
hilarious. It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
He's
in
like,
that.
who?
He's
said,
like,
I'm blind.
I mean, it just brought me back to his performance in Nebraska.
Yes.
And I thought that was
Nebraska's
great.
an excellent movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know you can go ahead and talk about it because I know it's your favorite part, but the scene with the screen. Like,
Oh
I love
yes,
that,
like
yeah.
when he's talking to Dakota Fanning's the Squeaky, when he's talking to her and he's just like, "I'm coming in there," and he hits that
That
screen
screen
door,
door, he's like,
and
"That ain't
flicks
gonna
her,
stop
This
me."
ain't gonna stop
Oh,
me.
yes.
Yeah.
I love that, and it's like it's even Brad Pitt uses the same
Yes.
accent as Inglourious Basterds. It's like the
Yes.
only accent he can do.
But
Other
it's
than,
great.
I mean, 7 Years in Tibet, he does the German accent, but I mean, his really all he's got in his arsenal is like maybe
Like,
3 accents.
There's so
But
much
it was-
every movie that Brad Pitt's in. I'm
Yeah.
like, how is he the same
Same.
freaking person?
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
freaking
Pulls it off.
sells it to
He
you
pulls it off.
so
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
He was
Yes.
perfect. But that role was just perfect in this movie.
Yes.
And I mean, when they slit his tire and he's like, "Fix it." Like,
Yes.
I love that scene. And
Yeah.
like, I mean,
He's a badass in the movie, and
Well-
I thought I really enjoyed that because I'm just like, he's a stunt man.
Yeah.
They're all badasses.
Yes,
you know,
yeah,
you gotta
yeah.
be a badass to jump out of moving cars and
and
planes
that's what I
and,
loved about.
and get burned and everything
I was
else.
gonna say, that's what I loved about the Bruce Lee scene. I know Bruce Lee's daughters come out and said that she hated that scene and they felt like they really did her father injustice. But injustice. But I was like, they weren't trying to. I think
No, they
just to
weren't trying to
tear
tarnish
Bruce Lee
his-
down. I just
Yeah.
feel like that scene was to show that Brad Pitt and his,
Yes,
his
how-
career. It's like he's
He-
capable
yeah,
of tackling.
exactly.
And it
Well,
set
it
him
was,
up.
it was the new versus
Yeah.
the old. And it was this new guy coming in with this new
Yeah.
fangled, like,
Oh,
I'm
he's
the
like,
best, I'm the greatest.
You kill anybody by
Yeah.
accident and you go
It's
to
called
jail. It's called
manslaughter.
manslaughter.
Exactly.
And he says, "I think we both won. It was a draw or whatever." And he's like, "That dent in the car would say otherwise."
Yes.
Yeah.
I just like everything that came out of his mouth was
great.
perfect.
But I mean, that
and the same
scene-
thing with DiCaprio.
Yeah,
I
it
felt like
served-
the dialogue in the movie was so fantastic
Oh yes.
and real, which is what Tarantino sells on. I mean,
Yes.
His dialogue.
his dialogue is real. I remember with Django, and I remember Jamie Foxx coming to his defense because of the N-word used so many times in the movie. And Jamie Foxx come right out and said, "Look, this is a period piece. That's how people spoke." And he says, even in some of Tarantino's older works, Samuel L. Jackson's come out and said, "Man, that's how we talk.
Yeah.
We call each other that." And it's like, if that's how we have real conversations, and he puts the real conversation in his art, then leave the man alone. He's just making a real feeling movie.
Right.
And that's what I appreciate about Tarantino. And in this, there were so many scenes where the actors were portraying actors off set. And when Leonardo goes in the trailer and starts throwing things
Oh, I love
and
that.
talking to himself, and he says, "If you do it again, I'm going to go home and put a bullet in your head."
Yes,
He's talking to
yes.
himself in the mirror. And I'm
Yes.
just like, that is so
It
what a
seems-
method
It's
actor would
authentic,
really
right.
do. Yeah, it's very authentic.
And that's what I loved about DiCaprio in this movie and why I feel so much he deserves, like an Oscar, is because his his acting with Tarantino's dialogue is what made it feel so real. Because
Yeah.
he was playing this actor whose career was on the downslide. He was past his prime and he wasn't getting the roles like he used to, and he was struggling with that. And he was still trying to be the best at his craft, and that showed on screen so much, where he was just struggling to be perfect, and he was good. He was perfect. I mean, like I said, the scene
Yeah.
where he's playing
Caleb.
Caleb,
Yeah.
that blew me away. I was just like, wow, that is something like even like. And it was perfect because I'm thinking, that's some of the best acting I've ever
The
seen.
little
And then that
girl.
little girl gets
Yeah.
up there and is like, that's the best acting
he
I've
cries.
ever seen. And
Yes.
I was like, that. I was like,
Yes.
that's how I feel right now, man. You're making me feel
Yeah.
that. I
But
mean, I loved it.
don't you? One of the things that I enjoyed the most about the movie was how it was in Hollywood in 1969.
Yes.
Yes.
And probably before. I told
He
Keith
brought you into that
We were
period.
playing Destiny and just decompressing about the movie together, and it was just like we both kind of agreed that it's not like that. I mean, those actors they had a job to do,
Yep.
and yes, they were rich, but they were still just regular people,
Yeah.
and they knew that, and they acted like that.
They
I
just
mean,
wanted to do their
they
job.
just
Now
wanted
they
to do
want
their
to.
job, and it was about they wanted to make money, and
Yeah.
they wanted the nice stuff and everything, but it was more about making art and being good at their craft. But outside of the movie lot, or they were just a human being. And today, the actors, we've kind of lifted them up to be larger than life.
Yeah, you get
and
the
put
celebrity
them-
status.
Yeah, and it just felt like back then these were still just normal human beings doing a job like the garbage man.
Well, I was gonna say that's.
And I love that about
Yeah.
that time period, and he captured that because they talked to people on the street. When Sharon Tate goes to the
Theater.
cinema
Yeah.
to watch herself on film
And get the reaction.
and get the
of
reaction
people.
of the
Yeah.
crowd, and she's
Yep.
just eating it up because that was how she felt fulfilled, was
Yeah.
by making an audience laugh or cry or whatever. And I wish people were still like that today. I
Yeah.
really don't. I mean, there's actors out there that don't even go see their own films.
They don't watch
And
them.
I'm-
They don't
and
care.
yeah, and I'm just like, that's just a paycheck to them. What happened to the love of filmmaking that these people had? And Quentin
But
Tarantino
see, and that's the
captured
thing.
that
I was gonna say
so
that's
well.
the thing about Tarantino in general is like it's his love for film. But you
Oh,
see
yeah,
it in
he loves
Inglourious
filmmaking,
Bastards.
yeah.
You
Oh,
see it
definitely.
in all of the movies that he does, and how he modifies cinema to
Yeah.
fit his own brand, but then he also pays homage to it.
Yeah.
And I mean that's where you find like even the radio stations, like the old sound of the radio, the
Yep.
old commercials
The
that
old
you hear. in the-
commercials.
Even what I loved is he fit it in there, and if
The
you
red
notice
apple.
this about
Yeah,
is
cigarette
that
bit.
the sound?
No,
effect?
no.
That's the
See,
cigarette.
The
bit.
Wilhelm
no, no, no.
scream is in
That
the
was
first
great.
Yeah,
2
the Wilhelm
seconds of the
screams
movie.
there. Yeah. But no,
But-
it's the sound that you see at any beginning of a Tarantino flick. He does that,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
when the camera is panning over the drive-through or the drive-in.
Yeah.
And as it comes over and goes right into like the light
trailer.
of the projector, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
you hear the sound in the background before it cuts to him
Yeah.
getting in, before it cuts to Brad Pitt getting into his trailer.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, I just love that because I'm like, he still found a way to work that in there.
Mhm.
You still have like the old Columbia Pictures,
Yes.
you know,
Yes, at the
beginning
beginning.
logo.
Yep.
And I'm like, that it's just
Dust on the film.
Dust
I
on the
love it.
film.
Just
I
the
love it.
love of
there's just
Well, even his use of like he used like the actual footage
Yes.
from The Great Escape and just
Yep.
put. I
Put
mean, there's
Leo
so much of
in
it.
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
even Sharon Tate, like even though like Margot
I
Robbie's
love that they use
Sharon
actual
Tate.
Sharon Tate.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
she's sitting in
Yeah.
the theater watching it as Sharon Tate, but Sharon Tate's actually on the
In the
screen.
screen.
And I
Yeah.
love that.
Yep.
And I was going back like to talk about like how actors they were normal people doing their job. That's what I loved about showing DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, and like
Yes.
the contrast is like yeah, he lived in this big rich mansion, DiCaprio did,
Yeah.
and he had all this money,
Yeah.
and Brad Pitt's character lived in
Lives
a
in a
trailer,
trailer.
but they both had the same mindset. It was
Eating
like
Kraft macaroni and
Yes,
cheese.
but
I
yeah,
love
yes,
it.
I
but they
love-
both had the same
And what was
mindset.
the, what
they
was
just
the dog
wanted to do
food?
their
The wolf.
Yeah, wolf dog
wolf
food.
tooth.
Wolf dog.
But like they both, DiCaprio and him both wanted the same things. They both wanted to go to work, do
Yep.
their job the best of their ability, and even though they lived in different worlds, he was poor
Well,
and he was richer.
I was
they
gonna
still
say-
had that similar.
Well, and he
I
lets
loved-
Brad Pitt come and stay at
Yeah,
his house. And everything. How
exactly.
many
Yes.
Hollywood movie stars right now would you think would let you
even be
come
friends
and,
with
and
the
watch
stuntman
their
like
house?
that.
I
Well,
mean,
but
come on.
I think here's the thing. I think that's like there are those out there that do that, and they don't necessarily have themselves to this higher. Because here's the thing: you still see
there's
like
a few humble people. out
Yeah.
there.
right,
Chris
and
Pratt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, you still see a lot of
You had to
Hollywood
mention him,
stars
didn't you?
that
Yeah.
have to have their posse behind them. They
Yeah,
have this
yeah.
entourage,
Yeah.
and I bet you a lot of them are probably close friends that were with them when they were growing
Yeah.
up, and they kept closer.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's the bond that you see between Cliff and
Yeah.
and Dalton in this. Is it's
Yeah.
like you see them having been through all this crap for
Together, yeah.
10 plus years in the industry, and you have Dalton who's struggling with this identity crisis of I don't know what I'm going to be after all this is in.
Yeah.
And then Cliff's just like, well, I live at a trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I love is that you don't ever see him like hold that against him.
No.
He still goes over there. He still fixes his antenna.
Yeah,
and he's
no,
honestly
Well,
just
he's like
he's
his
grateful.
babysitter. Honestly, he's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's like, this is my best friend. I just want to help him out.
Right.
You know, when
And-
he tells him, I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to pay you anymore.
Yeah.
And Cliff is just like,
Yeah, it
well,
sucks,
well,
but
I'll
okay.
find something to do. You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
And it's just like, he would still be doing work for him even without getting paid.
Right.
I mean, he even says like, well, when you are done, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's like, well, you're a stuntman. You can be someone else's stuntman.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's his stuntman.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like, once you quit, I quit too.
Right.
Like,
Well, and I love the fact that that was the last hoorah that they were supposed to have, which builds towards the
Yes.
climax
Yes.
of the film.
Yeah.
But what I love too is like it's almost like because of that moment, you then see this juxtaposition at the very end of, for one, I don't want to give too much away, but Dalton's character finally gets a renaissance.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
comes back into it.
Well, he gets a lucky break.
He
because
gets
of
a
the
lucky
events.
break of how everything works out.
Yeah.
And then you also see Cliff's character in the ambulance at the end, and Dalton talks to him, and he's just like, you're a good pal.
Yeah.
And it's just it's like this very subtle way of him saying.
It just felt like a real friendship.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a real friendship. It took this incredible, amazing moment to also just bring them back to, we're bigger than the movies. This is a real bond that we have.
And this is like the first time they've ever worked together. And honestly, after seeing this movie, it makes me want to see them together in more movies.
Yeah.
It's like I want to see Brad Pitt and DiCaprio
yeah,
together
real
after
quick,
this.
let's briefly talk on that. This is the first time Leonardo DiCaprio and
Brad
Pitt
Pitt
have been together on screen.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
That is.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
all the years
may
they've been
not
big actors.
It may not be the last if Tarantino doesn't just make 10 films, and because what he's known for is using the same actors over and over and over again.
He rehires same people.
And maybe with their on-screen success in this movie and their individual success,
their
in
chemistry
other,
was perfect.
Oh yeah,
it was fantastic.
Yeah,
I agree.
I've never seen that. I'll be honest with you, the last chemistry I saw that I enjoyed as much was Mel Gibson and Danny Glover.
Oh,
in
yeah.
The Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal
Like, I
Weapon.
think their on-screen chemistry is fantastic. And even though those movies aren't, like huge money-making and Oscar-winning films,
Yeah.
like this will probably be. I
We
feel
hope.
like
We're hoping,
I feel
yeah.
like
I
it
think-
will.
I think it
has
will be a
very good
contender.
chance. But yeah, their on-screen chemistry was like, I do want to see them in more. And it's even off-screen. They're two completely different kind of actors because we know Leo's a method actor, and he gets into his roles, and Brad Pitt is not. And Brad Pitt's one of those guys that's been known to like just kind of I'm there, I do my shots, and then I leave.
Yeah.
He's not. He's just a come and goer. He's not the guy that's in the part all the time, like living it, like DiCaprio has been known to do.
Because he's so freaking
And-
good looking.
I know.
I'm so jealous.
Like-
He's just like,
Yeah.
I do my thing and I go home.
Yeah, I mean, I told
I mean,
Keith,
God
I
did
was just
good.
like, I texted him, I was like, Brad Pitt in this movie, he may be my new man crush. I mean, Chris Pratt
come
might
on.
be. I might put him on the back burner.
It's like when he takes
But-
his shirt off to fix that antenna.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You're just like,
And
damn,
I love that.
How can
flashback,
someone
You're
look
gonna
that
say
good?
the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
Go
love
Yes.
that because that's when they flash back to the Bruce Lee thing, and when it comes back to him, he's
It's
like,
this
fair enough.
Yeah, this huge, long, like 15, almost 20-minute flashback.
Yes.
Of how or why he's not gonna get that gig.
Yes.
And I just love that. As like took us like on this completely separate trip.
right in
Just
the middle
to
of
take
it.
us right back to him saying,
Yes.
yeah, that's fair.
Well, and I will
God,
say,
love
even
that.
the telling of time in this film, and this will probably be my last point, but it's like there were so many moments where, I mean, as long as the film is, it's a short period of time. And when we're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
other than one moment where it says 6 months later, you're talking about the span of a couple days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how the passage of time, it's like he'll do those cuts where you're just like, wait, what's going on? And then you'll find out it's flashback. But then you're like, well, how much time passed during that? Oh, well, it couldn't have been much because, here's Margot Robbie still in the theater. She's still
Yeah.
watching the same movie.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you're sitting here realizing that all of this is happening like within the same afternoon. And it's little things like that that I love about editing where you're still letting, I mean, kind of like going back to Dunkirk.
Yeah.
And how the same story is told, but in different
Through
spans
different
of time.
perspectives and spans
And
of
it takes
time,
you
yeah.
a while to kind of pick up on it. But as you're watching the movie, it's like I love when you're being told a story and you don't necessarily understand how you're being told, but that's the beauty of filmmaking.
Yeah, it's
and
not
that's
this
the creativity
chronological
of it.
thing. Yeah.
Right.
It-
And yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say and the last point I'll make was on the actual period piece itself. I went to see the movie with my dad, and my dad was a teenager when all of that was going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that happened in the movie, which I don't know about Charles Manson. That's somebody that I've never really researched or studied or learned
freaking
a lot
crazy.
about.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know a lot about that stuff. So my dad's whispering in my ear during the movie, and he's like, yeah, he's gonna go to the ranch. The ranch was real, and there was
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
the Manson girls, and he knew all this stuff was happening, and he knew all the way up to the end when they pulled in the driveway
Yeah.
that they were going to.
Well,
to
even
do,
yeah.
the four
do-
people that go that
Yeah,
pull
that's
up,
real.
that's
People.
true. That
Well,
Yeah,
and
actually
even the girl riding off.
Yeah.
The girl running off and driving off
Yeah,
all
the
of that.
car
It
really
was only
happened.
3 people
Right.
that ended up showing up.
Right.
Yeah.
But that
he,
actually happened.
He saw so many things in the movie that he pointed out to me and that he appreciated, and that's what made me appreciate Tarantino's
How
attention
authentic,
to detail,
yeah.
because he was like, some of those billboards are real, and we
Yes.
had those billboards here in Kentucky, and he's like, my first girlfriend Yvonne had boots like that, when he
Yeah.
saw Sharon Tate walking down the street.
That's
He's just
awesome.
like, I mean, it reminded him of her because of the way she was walking and the knee-high white leather boots. He was like, and everything about it, the cars and everything. My dad even pointed out because Brad Pitt drives a 1969 Carmen Ghia, and my dad has one of those sitting in his garage right now.
That's crazy.
And it's not a convertible like his, but my dad was just like, we were both, because it was my first car, and we were both like, yeah, Carmen Ghias don't go that fast.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
sound like that. They don't drive like that. You can't spin tires in a Carmen Ghia. They go like 60 miles an hour. So it's like a little Volkswagen
So you found
engine.
some discrepancies.
So we found some things, but again, my dad was like, well, he's a stunt man, and he probably did some things to the car because most stuntmen are
Could have
also-
modified it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they modify stuff in there. He's a
See,
a
there's
stunt
ways to
driver.
work around it.
So
He's
I'm
a
just like
handyman.
he's a handyman.
Well,
he
and
can
that's
do
the
that.
thing. When you have enough believability in detail throughout the story,
Yeah.
you'll make
Yeah.
up those things in your head
You'll fill
because
in
you'll be
those
like,
blanks.
exactly.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can make it up on your own
But
and
there
say,
was
no,
so
that's
much
plausible.
that he just caught on to and was just like, we were done with the movie, and he was like, what I enjoyed about it the most was it took me back to 1969.
yeah.
And I mean, to do that, you have to be a good filmmaker, and you have to pay attention to detail.
Yeah.
And the classic cars, the music, the way he said the way people walked, and even some of the words that they said that's how people spoke.
How they treated the hippies.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
yeah. and
honestly,
he
that
said
was
that too. He said everybody hated the hippies. It was always those
the
damn
hippies definitely
Yeah.
replaced the N-word
Yes.
in this movie.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Damn hippies
Yeah.
replaced
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
N-word
You
in this
know,
movie.
Yeah.
I liked the movie wasn't politically correct by no means. So
Right.
I liked a lot of that stuff, and he enjoyed it too. And I think if you can speak to someone's heart that was alive
Back
in
then,
that
yeah.
time and bring them back, then you've made a pretty decent
Absolutely.
film. And so that's my last point.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, a 3.5 out of 4 stars. Absolutely
3.5,
wonderful.
yeah. And this is our first film this year so far that we've actually mentioned Oscars for.
Yes.
So yeah,
We've
yes,
all
definitely.
actually agreed on the same star rating
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It
So-
took me a good day, but the more and more I thought about it, and I was just trying to let it
Yeah.
soak in. I
Well,
can't
it took
wait
you
to
a moment
see it
to
again.
get to 3.5.
Yeah.
For me, it was like
Yeah.
3.5 or 4.
I had to go. Yeah,
I wanted to walk out and go, that was the best movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it's not. And Pulp Fiction's still my favorite.
Yeah.
That's my favorite Tarantino movie. I will agree. I think Bastards is a better movie all around, but
Yeah.
there's just something about Pulp Fiction
I love
that
Pulp.
Yeah,
get
no,
you.
you-
I
I
don't
mean,
know what it. I
from-
know every word
Yes.
to that movie,
and there's
all
just
the
a
bad
flow
ones too.
about it.
Yes, I love that movie. It's
There
got
is. There's
special
just
place.
a flow and a rhythm to it that
For,
just
for
you
me,
can't
I think
beat.
part of why
Yeah.
I love it, and I think Sean said the same thing when we were playing Destiny, though. It's the first Tarantino movie I ever saw, so I think that's part of why I'm so
mine
attached
too.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's fun because the first time I ever watched it was
Was
because
at my
you-
house?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it was. You showed it to me and Neil at the
at
your
the lake,
bachelor
at the
party.
lake,
It was
yeah.
the first time I ever watched it. So I think it has sentimental reasons for me
For that,
beyond
yeah.
just the movie.
But
too.
it is well.
Yeah.
It's one of those that if you've never seen a Tarantino film and everybody points to Pulp Fiction
Yeah.
when you
It's
watch
a good
it.
introduction
Well,
to Tarantino.
absolutely, and
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
it is exactly who he is.
Mhm.
And it's like immediately you already understand the flavor of Tarantino, and you also are like, I've never seen a
His,
film like
his
this
writing
before.
style, his
Yep.
attention to detail.
Yep.
It's great. I
Yep.
remember Brandon's first time watching it was with me because we went to Hollywood Video
Yep.
back when it existed and rented it. Because I remember the girl behind the counter was just like, "This movie's like she sold it." She was like, "This is one of the best movies ever." And it's like,
It's like,
if you-
trust me, we get it.
Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
that's why we're
She-
renting it.
she
Once
was
upon
like,
a
come
time
on.
in Hollywood Video.
she was all about it.
So, guys, 3.5 out of 4 stars. Definitely go check out Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes.
Amen.
I think we're ready to move on to some headlines this week. So we already teased it a little bit, but what do you all
Tease.
think about waiting just a little bit longer for sequels? Emma Stone is now saying, yeah, I like the fact that Zombieland Double Tap took so long
Mhm.
to get to the point that, maybe we should just do this every 10 years. So what would be the problem with that?
Zombieland's a good movie to do that with.
Yeah, I agree.
But a lot of films that you're gonna films that tell us the same story over 2 or 3 films like Lord of the Rings. I know they shot all of that at the same time,
Right.
But still, even that movie, if they would have shot them one at a time, I would still rather them be 2 to 4 years apart and not 10.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But
well, and
because
for
they're
something
telling
that
the same-
special, I
yeah.
actually love the fact that they were a year apart.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
literally
Yeah,
like
I'm saying
I was
if
planned.
they
that
didn't
way.
have
Kill
the
Bill
budget
was
to do that.
Going back to Tarantino, but Kill Bill was only like not even a whole year. I think it was like 6
Yeah.
or 7 months apart. But that made sense because they were
Volume
two
1
parts
and
of
2.
two
Yeah.
parts of a whole movie.
Right.
So with stuff like that, yeah, Lord of the Rings, they're telling this overarching.
See,
tale.
but then I think of something like Matrix, where you had the first one, which was a huge hit,
Yep.
and of course they were just like, "Well, we got to make more money off this." And then you had Reloaded come out like 2 years later, but Revolutions came out like 6 months after that.
yeah, because they filmed those.
Or
things.
Revelation.
at
And
the
I
same
think
time.
that
just
if
like,
they had taken their
ah.
time with that, it would have been better. So I think it depends really on the like Marvel. Obviously, with what they're doing, it makes sense that they release so many movies every year. But Star Wars,
But
where,
those aren't really considered sequels.
no, but still, I mean,
Yeah, but
you
if
still have
if you look at the Avengers movies were released
like
what,
several
years
years apart.
several years
Several years apart
because
'cause
they
they-
filled in the gap with all the
they have
with all
to
the
build up to
yeah,
it.
exactly.
But then when you look at movies like Star Wars, having Star Wars released so close together, I think did hurt their creativity because
Yeah.
they're more worried about releasing a new Star
the
Wars than
originals
they were.
released somewhat close together.
No, they were
I mean,
still,
every
I
3 or
mean,
4 years apart.
They started in the 70s and made it into the 80s. They were, yeah, but they were still.
Late 70s.
These-
wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was
77,
like- yeah.
But still, like you said, they were about 3 or 4 years apart.
Yeah.
They weren't just
Yeah.
a year or two
One right
apart.
after the
yeah.
other.
right. Yeah.
I think you should definitely. I mean, Nolan did it with the Batman movies, and I think it served those even better. He made a Batman movie, he made another movie, then he made
The
the
next Batman movie,
And
yeah.
it's like I think when you take some time off to rejuvenate and that creativity, it can help out.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on the type of story. I don't ever think, unless you feel like Lord of the Rings where you film it all at once, I don't ever think like a sequel like a year right after. It worked like for Infinity War and Endgame because again they were filmed together and they were one like
Yeah.
they were two parts of a
Cohesive
story.
Yeah.
But look at Toy Story, though. I mean, Toy Story was
Years
filmed
apart.
years apart, and they're not. I mean,
Well, see,
they're
and here's
good,
the thing.
but
I guess,
they're not.
and it's
The
weird though
first
because
three,
I would
I
say,
think are though. I mean, I think they're the one right after the other. They got better with the original three.
Yeah, I would agree.
yeah, I would
mean,
agree with that
now
too.
4
2 and 4 are my least favorite. 1 and 3 I like the best. But
Yeah. I would agree, but here's the thing. I think with those, it's different in the sense that, yeah, the story itself, I think, I mean, I look at it like with Zombieland, it is one of those things where the evolution of the characters, you could see it taking 10 years only because it's like, you honestly could see them just going
they're-
through
they're
the
traveling
same
around
movie.
surviving, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
I was going to say,
yeah.
it's the same movie year after year after year until there
Yeah.
is something that's crazy that would make it worth telling another story.
Mhm.
Whereas a lot of these other films, I'm like, you let a little bit of time pass, and it's
Mhm.
almost like like you said. I think it's story based, and it depends on what the story needs and what the necessities of it to tell it.
that's a good
But-
way to put
Honestly-
it. What it needs. I like that.
I was that's
Yeah.
honestly how I feel about everything with film. Where
Yeah.
like, people are like, I mean, runtime. Like Zombieland had a perfect runtime, even though it's so short. Whereas Lord of the Rings is 3 hours long.
Yeah.
But they need the story.
the story, whatever
Honestly,
the story
anything
needs.
you do with a movie needs to serve the purpose of the story.
Yeah.
I mean, casting. I don't care who you cast if it serves the purpose of the story.
Right.
And that's I think what Hollywood gets wrong so much now is they're focused on, well, we need to do this, this, and this to make money. And it's like, well, if you focus on serving the purpose of a story and making a
Right.
great story,
Yeah.
you're going to make money.
Yeah.
And I really just feel like that's pretty much the bottom line for anything is
Because
focus
I
on
think
what
that's
that
the
is.
interesting thing about something like Zombieland is it was a success when it came out,
Mhm.
but it also is interesting because you have the moments where it's like you could almost let it be like rest on its own.
Yeah, it could be
But
just a
then-
movie by itself.
Right, and I think that's the beauty of it is it's like all these others that like Avengers. If you wait too long and you don't have the Marvel movies that fill in the gaps, it's like you're going to lose interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People aren't going to really care
people
what's
forget
coming
the
next.
details,
Like
too.
Avatar.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I think that's the interesting thing is that when you do bring up Avatar, you do think about the fact that it was so long because after the first one,
Mhm.
I don't think he was necessarily planning on sequels. He was talking about it, but he didn't expect the success that he got with the first one.
Yeah.
Once that became hugely successful, he was like, all right, we're going to now create this whole universe.
Well, then he decided that anything he ever needed to do could be
He could-
told
he
within
could
the
do
Avatar.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is now we're not going to just get Avatar 2, but now we're going to get like Avatar 2 and a steady release of sequels.
Yeah.
So then
2,
it's going
3,
to be
4, and 5.
Right, and it's going to be a question of, well, we waited so long for this universe to kind of breathe,
Yeah.
but now are we really ready to dive back in and then have one thing right after another? I mean, we've got Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
It's like we got Hobbs and Shaw. We're looking forward to watching it, but it's like that series could take a break for a while. You don't really need.
I wish Fast and the Furious would, but
yeah, I mean, it's a cash grab.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's become one of those movies that's like, what do you think is going to happen in this summer's Fast and Furious? Like, I mean, it's really one of those movies that you kind of expect there to be one.
They're going to
every
beat the
year
crap
or
out
two.
of each other and blow crap up and do crazy stunts.
Well, yeah, it really is like, what's the
It
next
goes-
big set piece?
It goes with different stories require different things, and if you look at a book, it's the same way. You can write all of your story in one book and separate it with chapters, or you can write your whole story over a series of books. And I think like that when you think of sequels that way, there's
I like
movies
that.
are better served in close-knit chapters.
Yeah.
But then there's other movies or other stories that are better served being told through one book and then another or one film and then wait a while. Then I mean, you think about the time that it took to release some of the Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
I mean, he's taken so many years to write these books in between them, even the ones that already exist. It was years between them, and I think that probably is much. It was a good decision on his part than to just start writing immediately and get a jumbled mess of a story that needs time to breathe. He needs to have other creative thoughts because those other creative thoughts will play into his next novel or his next book.
Right.
So Zombieland's one of them movies.
I think that's
you
a great.
could, you could
that's
do
a great
one.
comparison.
You could do one every 10 years or whatever.
Well, and it's
it would
weird
be
because I
fun.
mean,
It's-
the obvious answer too is that people die. And it's like, if you wait 10 years, then it's like your actors could pass away.
Yeah.
Some could get,
What happens?
have
Yeah.
a terrible tragedy, and it's like they can't make movies anymore. Who knows?
Yeah.
And it's like you do have that, But I think what I like about Emma Stone throwing that out there is I don't think it's really, and it's not really something you could plan, but it's not really been thought of until I think recently because of something like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where you've seen something that massive span for so long that it was kind of like if we got to revisit this, we'll do a remake. Yeah. And I like the fact that they're like, no, it's still the original stands up on its own.
Yeah.
We don't have to do a remake. We can just tell another story.
Just pick it up 10 years later. We're in different places. We're in different walks of life.
And if everybody's on board,
we're
then
running
it's like
from different zombies. I mean,
right.
I mean, really, that's the perfect way to look at it. Is,
Bill Murray's still dead.
If people like and I hope if they bring him back, that would be amazing.
As a zombie,
as a zombie,
that would
as
be
a real
so
zombie
good.
this time.
That would be great.
But
Yes.
people appreciate that. If there's a movie that's good enough, everybody loves it when people come back 10 or 20 years later and reprise the same role. That's why we want another Goonies movie. That's why we want another Gremlins movie. That's why there's so many movies like that we're like, man, 30 years later, let's get the same cast, if they're alive, to come back and reprise these roles. And there's been enough time in between that you
can make a new unique story.
You make a new unique story,
Right.
and you gain a whole new audience through the release of the next film. But when you burn people out on sequel after sequel after sequel, like Fast and Furious, I think that franchise
Has
is going to
run itself into
eventually
the
it's going to
corner. Yeah.
lose interest. And
Well, I think that's why they've had to turn to the Hobbs and
spin-off.
Shaw.
Yeah.
Spin-off,
yeah.
And it's like because of a spinoff, it's like you're almost now trying to move the course, and it's like you're trying to say, all right, well, we can at least focus on these two actors who are at least going to give us a little bit of back and forth. And honestly, it looks promising. Something like that does look like it's changing it up enough, but it's still the same formula. And it's almost like, well, what do we do that gets people away from the original Fast and Furious series? It's like, oh, we got to go even more crazier.
Yeah.
Go even bigger set pieces. It's like
got to pull a helicopter out of the sky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy part about it is it's like they're literally going overboard. I mean, but okay, so be it. It's like it seems
That's
to
what those movies are supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah, go
But
overboard.
Right. And so in that case, it serves the purpose of the story.
True.
And so it's okay that we have the ridiculous sequels that we do as long as they continue to be entertaining.
Yep.
But I do think it's kind of a nice... I don't know. I think it was just for Emma Stone to bring that up, it made me think about it. And I was like, I wouldn't mind seeing more movies being made with the idea that this could expand, but
it doesn't
if
have
it
to.
doesn't,
Yeah.
then it can stand alone by itself. And then who knows, if we revisit it 10 years from now and we have another wonderful story to tell in that, same world, then okay, we'll do it.
Honestly, if they have a movie like that that's successful and good, I would prefer, like, 10, 20 years down the road that they revisit it, like Sean's saying, like with the Goonies, than remaking it. Like, their immediate reaction is, let's reboot this or let's
Right.
remake this. It's like, why?
Exactly.
It's like, if
you had
could-
these
if-
great characters and these great stories, let's see where they are 20 years from
If
now.
you
Right.
can get the same cast and
Exactly.
crew back together and make another one, dude, just like with Ghostbusters.
That was good.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
think
right.
alike, man. It's
exactly. I'm just
crazy.
saying, just like with
It's
Ghostbusters.
almost like you're my best friend.
I know it.
Segue relationship segment.
Let's go.
No, I'm just kidding. Go
No,
ahead.
I'm just saying,
Finish your
no,
thought.
just like with Ghostbusters, it's like they tried the whole like remake type
Yep.
thing, and
Yeah.
it was terrible.
work.
But I mean, now it's like, okay, well, we can take, the original director's son is going to direct. The original director's produce. Ivan Reitman, he's going to produce. And they're going to. We don't know for sure if they're going to get any of the original cast, but it's been heavily hinted.
Yeah,
I think, yes,
Sigourney Weaver said they were all coming
yeah,
back.
awesome.
except
Okay,
for
good.
Harold Ramis. Of
Yeah,
course,
but
Right.
I
Again,
have
that
a
goes
theory
back to the
about
whole
that. I mean,
people
it's not
die,
not
so.
for this podcast, but I do have a theory about how Harold
I wanna
Ramis
hear
might
it.
have a part in that.
Ouch.
Well,
okay.
There's some thoughts about like why is Ecto-1 in this shed and with this family?
Yeah.
And some people are thinking maybe this family are like his descent, like his family or something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that'd be kind of a
I know
cool
he's
way.
tweeted out some things about how the whole family's together.
Yeah.
and it was his family, but I think it had a dual meaning.
Yeah.
So
So I'm
something
wondering
about
if
the
maybe
film.
it's like if it's supposed to be like Egon's family or something. Like maybe it was his son.
Egon
or
and
something.
Janine.
Yeah. Janine.
All right.
I love it.
So-
I love it though.
That
so-
would be interesting. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but that
Right.
would be kind of cool if
Right.
they go that route. So
Yeah, we'll see whenever it happens.
Yeah.
All right, guys, are we ready to move on to our relationship segment?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above and a thing called love.
Oh, that's right, guys. Oh, don't we love it? So sweet.
Family, friends, relationships.
I love it.
Y'all are my
All right.
family.
What's the question this week?
The question is, as we've already just somewhat hinted at, can you have more than one best friend?
Well, best kind of implies that they are the best. So how can
True.
you have more than one of something that's the best?
That's true.
Okay, that's our show for this week. I mean, that's really how we could end it.
I'll say one thing about that. I had a best friend, and he's not alive anymore.
Mm.
But no other friend will ever compare to him in my life.
Yeah.
But I have multiple friends that I would say one of my best friends, or these
Yes.
are the two of my best friends. Like that's
Yeah.
I would say that, but there's only been one guy that I would say was like
Your best
the
friend.
best friend. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, no.
So you guys are great, but you can't compare.
No, I understand that
Sorry.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I feel the same way. I do have.
And it's not my wife. So let's go back to like one of our first
Aw.
relationship
What was it?
segments.
It was
Well,
like,
you've already
Can your
messed
is
it
your
up
wife
because
your best
is your
friend?
wife, should your wife be your best,
best
friend?
friend?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we
you've already messed
we
up.
did
She's
say
a good friend.
we did say
She's a friend with
should.
benefits. And I'm
She is
hers
one of
as
your
well.
best friends.
She is one of my best friends.
That's right.
No, that's how I talk to people about you as like one of my best friends. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with Sean on that sentiment. That I think you really only like. There's some relationships where you just have that bond where it's like nothing's ever going to break that or compare to that. But I mean, you do have I think in your life people that you consider amongst the closest to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's really funny is like the guy that I'm talking about, we weren't friends when he passed away. We kind of cut ties for years. But still, I can't remember another person that I told the things that I told him. And the fun time. Like I've had some fun times with you guys, and I've had fun times with my brother-in-law, Neil, even before he was my brother-in-law. And I've had fun times with my wife, the love of my life. But I'm honestly, though, like he is set apart. And I know someday I'll get to see him again and we'll be best friends all over again. But, yeah, I mean, even with us not being in communication or contact for years before he passed away, like still the guy was the best friend I've ever had.
Right.
So it's just kind of weird how that can happen.
Well,
Even when
and I mean, it's
even when you
weird-
kind of break up.
Yeah.
it's still they're
Break
still
well,
he's
those
still the
memories
best
and that
man.
bond
Yeah,
you
he's the
had. I
best
mean,
guy.
it transcends whatever
Yeah,
happened
right,
between
it
you.
does.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's actually interesting. You brought up the fact that, and it wasn't really a falling out or anything. It's just, life heads in different directions. And sometimes, paths don't cross as much
Life
anymore.
finds a way.
And life
to
finds
break apart.
a way.
Life finds a way to die.
Oh, man. This gets bitter real quick.
It's kind of opposite of what that quote was meant for. But,
No, I'm joking.
No, you're fine.
But no, it's interesting that it's like you think about it, but even with life going on, it's like you were saying, Sean, the memories and the value that person has and that hold that they have on your life doesn't really change.
Well, even people, like you said, like you go your separate ways and things sort of out. But it's funny because you actually mentioned a friend of ours from like middle school and high school earlier today. But the funny thing is, we were at the lake, me and Miranda, and she mentioned Tristan.
Yes,
we haven't watching right now.
Is he watching?
Hey, Tristan!
Shout out to you,
Shout
Tristan,
out,
buddy.
bud.
We're talking
Happy
about
birthday in a couple.
in a couple days.
Yeah, a couple days. It's coming
5th,
up.
So yeah,
Is it the 5th? I always thought it was the 8th. Oh, terrible!
Oh man, I could be
You're
wrong.
a
Maybe I'm
crappy
wrong.
friend.
We're
Brandon.
terrible
Well,
best friends.
I could be wrong. Well, we haven't seen him in years, but even then, like we were sitting at the lake, and Miranda, we're sitting there talking because Tristan used to come down to the lake with us all the time, and we're sitting there talking about stuff. She goes, "Remember when Tristan's sitting in that chair and it just starts leaning side? He doesn't say a word; it just starts leaning sideways, and the whole chair collapses." And he goes, "Oh." And like we just started talking about all these memories, and it's like, man, I was like, when I said, man, what's he up to now? And you think about, I mean, not just him, but a lot of friends I had in the past.
Yeah.
that, may not.
Well,
see or talk to me anymore,
obviously,
but
I'm going to go ahead and say it on air.
yeah.
Touchy feely moment. Okay,
Oh.
Keith is my best friend
Yes,
over here.
well,
Sorry, Sean.
That's okay.
We've
hope you
known
don't-
each other.
I
for
know
We've
I'm-
known each other for our
Yeah.
entire lives.
entire
So
lives.
It's like we built Red Moon
I thought
into
you
what
were
it
gonna
is.
get married. So
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
it wasn't legal. Now it is, and now we're
that's-
thinking about
That's our
it.
plan.
So-
if we get to 40 and we're still sick, no.
Hey, it used to be 30, so we keep pushing it back.
Well, that's only a year away, so.
But it's like, no, I see Keith obviously on a weekly basis. We're always constantly in touch, but then it's like one of my other buddies, Logan, who I was in his wedding, a very dear friend of mine, and I would still consider him one of my best friends. And it's interesting because I was driving through I live super close to the neighborhood he grew up in, and that's where we all hung out, and tons of memories going through there. But I was just coming back from the store, and I actually was driving by, and somebody was out walking, and it happened to be his sister. And so, like, I pulled over, and I just waved at her, and, like, she came over and was just talking to me for a little bit, and we were catching up. I was like, well, tell your mom I said hi. And, I was like, I haven't talked to your brother in a while, and I feel bad. And, he randomly texted me out of the blue, and I know he got the message. And it's just, it's nice to know that there are people out there that you're close to, and so close to that it's like, even if you don't talk for months or even years apart, and yet you could pick up a conversation like it was the last time that you talked to them.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely love that about, just having those deep, very centric, deep-rooted friendships.
No, well, I was thinking about just like when we grew up you mentioned like we've known each other our whole lives, but when we grew up on Brackenbury,
Yeah, across
all
the
the kids. I
street.
mean, you had Brandon Milburn, Samantha Shepard, Patrick Shakley, not the Hornbecks, the Haneys,
The Haneys.
down the end of the
Man,
street.
some stories about the Haneys.
I mean,
Oh, my
just
gosh.
Yes, but so many people I just remember growing up with, and it's like if I saw them out in public, I would, just be like, hey, how are you doing? I mean, it's just people that you'll always remember because of the times you spent with them.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it is I think you summed it up beautifully, Sean, and the fact that it's like, you have one best friend, and then you have, your best friends.
You have
and
the people
and
that
I like to go ahead.
I was just saying you have the people that form your life and who you are.
Ooh, that was
that's
touching.
very good.
That was good. I like that, Keith. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Wow.
You have touched me, Brandon.
I have. I know I have.
Not in that way.
Many blessings.
But no, I will say that it's like you have a circle of people in your life, and it's like you have your acquaintances,
Talk about people
close
touching you
friends.
and your circle.
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
getting a little.
and
I don't know.
It's like a little
A
circle,
of
jerk.
people. I wasn't going that far, but you
So
did.
a circle of trust.
You have a circle of people who touch you.
and and it's like they have collars on, and no, I'm just
Pulp Fiction.
Bring out the gimp.
very close friends. But yeah, you do. You have those acquaintances. You have, and I think it's just like as your life continues, that you have a tighter and tighter knit close knit group of friends.
Yeah.
And it's like I think you're a very lucky person if you can have people in your life that you can surround yourself with that are positive influences and that are there for you, through thick and thin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife would say, "Well, you guys got my husband smoking cigars and drinking beer, so
Not
you
true.
are not a good influence."
Not
Not
true.
But I think the cigar thing might be vice versa.
The
though.
pipes, you got to
pipe.
You got us
yeah.
on pipes.
The pipe.
Yeah, you did.
yeah, the tobacco pipe.
So she
people,
would not
not
consider
the crack
us.
pipe or the weed pipe or
Well,
anything like that.
You know,
We're
crack
getting
pipes
there.
sometimes.
We're working our way up.
We get a meth pipe. We started with tobacco, and then you had the weed, and then you go to crack, and then to meth, and then from there you're done.
Yeah, you just work
Yeah.
your way down the list.
keep going.
We're getting there. Don't worry, Amelia. We'll have him there by at least
We'll have him.
2020.
We'll have him on that meth in a
Yeah.
year or two.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
getting there.
She'll forget about it completely before Oscar season, but I still think if you guys come over for Oscars again,
We have to have the
do-
baking soda
You have
out.
to do the baking soda
Yeah.
and the oregano thing.
Yeah.
That was going to be the most awesome
I
prank.
think it's just we just sit there. We simply just say, "Look, you don't know what happens at the lake." Okay.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
I told Sean we should get some like blue rock candy and be like, it's meth.
Walter
It's
White.
like, this is Heisenberg
Yeah,
shit.
she hasn't seen Breaking Bad, so she wouldn't get it.
Well then, okay, fine. It'll sell even better.
Yeah.
We'll just
Yeah,
say
like,
this
this
is
is
really
real.
meth.
That's
Yeah.
what meth looks
Really
like.
meth.
Here's
And
Sawyer,
we-
here, want some?
I think it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like this
Sawyer
is
would be
what
like,
meth
"Oh, this
looks
is
like.
good. This is good meth." He'd go to school and tell his new teacher,
I think
My dad and his friends gave me meth.
"They gave me meth and it tastes good."
we should just get some pop rocks.
Yeah. He likes Pop Rocks.
Hell yeah, they're great, man.
Oh yeah.
Oh, but yeah, this is what friends do. We are terrible influences on
Yeah.
each
That's
other.
that's
This is
on,
exactly
on each
it.
other. That's
So
right.
she would not say we're your best friends. She would beg to differ.
No. Yeah, she would say
We're
you
bad
guys are-
influences.
No, best friends, but best friends can be bad influences. I think.
In her eyes.
Yeah. Okay.
Too late to go back now.
Yeah.
All right. No, I think that was a good relationship segment.
Was it?
It was.
Okay,
It was,
I
as
agree.
always.
I agree.
I think we always
I think
do.
our relationship segments have been, yeah. They've been good.
They're always, I think, our best segments. What do you all say? Would you say they are?
Well, you know who? I think.
I give them 3 out of 4 stars.
Ooh, here's the thing.
Ooh, I like
you
that.
know, we could say they're our best segments, but what does the audience think? How could they tell us if they think that it's our best segments?
You know,
I'm perplexed.
well,
How could they
Sean,
do that?
I don't know, but it is on the bottom of your screen.
Oh, right
Oh.
here. Oh, I got it right that
It was
time.
like the magic point as soon as you
when I do
pointed
that,
it.
my
Weird.
autofocus thing is following my finger now.
Would that
man.
happen to the bottom of his screen happen to say RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com?
That is what
It
it
sure
says.
would. Is
that- was that
RM Podcast at redmoonproductions.com.
That's
Huh.
it. It's
Huh.
like that
Fantastic.
Hollywood.com.
Hollywood.com.
Whatever happened to
That's
that?
what it's dead. Thank God it's dead. It was annoying.
I
That
used to
was
love it.
yeah.
used
I
to
sang
love
to
it.
that commercial a lot.
Yeah, I did too.
Theater
Yeah.
listings, Hollywood.com. I remember all of it.
Yeah.
But yes, they could. I mean, look, they could join in on the chat.
You know what happened to
each week whenever-
Hollywood.com?
What?
Fandango.
That's
It's the
true.
same thing.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
the same exact thing.
Yeah.
But they could join in each week on our chat if they're talking to us live, and we'll chime in every
They
once in a
could,
while.
yeah. You
and
can
let us
comment
know.
on Facebook, and
Or-
every now and then we give them a shout out or say something back.
We're
Yeah,
on all the
exactly.
social medias.
all of them,
We're
the
on all
Twitters,
of
the
them.
Snapchats, the
Tweeters.
Instagrams, the Facebook.
We are doing
You
whatever
can watch
we
us on
can
YouTube
possibly
if you
do
don't want to
get-
watch us on Facebook. Yeah.
Oh yeah, YouTube's higher quality too.
Yes.
So check that out. If
1080p.
you're gonna watch us later, watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
On the tube of
Give us a
you.
like, a thumbs up, or whatever you do on YouTube.
Subscribe.
The bell. Get the bell
subscribe.
icon.
Hit the bell. Ring it.
Yeah.
Ring
Ring
it
that
hard.
bell.
But yes, as it says down there, you can always obviously email us. rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. I think that wraps up another great show.
I
man.
think
does.
it does.
It's starting to get
It
warm in
does.
here.
Oh,
It
we're
is.
gonna have to turn the air back on,
Hey, it's
aren't
not
we?
quit.
Hey, it's still been better, but
We need to talk about what our new Tinseltown trivia is going to be.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we
this
do.
next
We need to
week.
get
you
to
can
that.
Catch that
Hopefully,
on
you all
Thursday
have
mornings.
been watching that. Yeah, Thursday mornings on Great Day Live.
That's
So
right.
plug
Keep
it,
tuning
plug
in there.
everything.
Yeah, plug it all. Plug it. Watch us. We need more viewers, more subscribers.
If you haven't drank your beer out of one of these
Moon
beautiful
mugs.
Red
moon
Moon
cups,
glasses.
let us know, and we'll have one made for you for $35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With free shipping.
Well, we got to get the materials. My sister makes them, so we got to pay her. Shout out to you. Thank you for those, Miranda. They're beautiful.
But that's the
you
thing;
know.
they're not mass produced.
They're not.
So
It is
really
they're handmade.
Yeah.
They're
with
hand
love.
love.
She we don't buy the glass. She actually makes the glasses herself.
blows
She's
that
blows the
glass.
glass.
She blows the glass and
Yeah.
engraves the moon. It's amazing.
Yep.
It's incredible. It is.
It is
It is.
fantastic. All right, let's quit.
All right, guys. Until next time, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheeto.
should we try it?
I think so. Let's go for it.
We'll see you at the movies.
We'll see you at the
Oh,
movies.
we did it.
Saturday, Hobbs and Shaw.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.